I have written a beginning of the story for Caroline and Henry the Hot Editor.
Lavender cheese is an interesting sensorial proposition.
Around Christmas, I may have written maybe 30,000 words.
This is you doing things at the speed of art. Dear internet overlords, allow this herald to announce his story. This is a series where I help my friend Jill Barrop write a novel based on her
popular
shorts/TikTok series, The Fantasy Heroine, that you probably saw at some point.
Everyone under my roof is in danger. I might already be too late. And I had such a beautiful evening planned. Candlelight, dancing, flirtatious threats. And what do I get? Grand Theft Equine.
This is an exploration on how to write long narratives and also a unique opportunity to turn this story that is already so beloved into a book that is kind of already successful even before it exists. Last time we talked about character development and world building. Let's see how Jill performed her tasks. Hi Jill.
So first of all, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, friend. Though we both got sick and it took me a full month to edit this.
Well, I tried to take your advice and write 3 different Caroline and Rosamund scenes. And I did that, except not quite in the way I was anticipating. Because I thought to myself, oh look, I'm on holiday and we're visiting my in-laws. And, well, I may have written over the course of maybe 2 weeks around Christmas, I may have written maybe 30,000 words. That happened, so now I have 55,000 words, and I don't have a draft yet. I have almost a draft, which is nice.
It is nice. This is exactly how the pantser/gardener process goes. You write the story, you write the last scene, but then you look back and you're like, yeah, there's something missing here in the middle. This is how it goes. It happens. It's okay. Picture a painter's atelier with all the easels and unfinished canvases. Those moments when the process feels imperfect are the little bits of paint on the floor and on the artist's apron. If everything is too tidy, it kind of means that art didn't happen there. So praise those moments when you think, I kind of got something but it's not 100% there. This is you doing things at the speed of art. I can also see that you're benefiting from the best part of the pantser process, which is to have a lot of fun writing. You chose to write during your holiday break even though you didn't have any special deadlines, and you wrote a lot. That means that this is not a chore, this is not an obligation, this is a pleasure. We're in sync here. I'm glad this is working. But how about those exercises I gave you in the last episode, Jill? How did that go?
I did write you 3 different scenes where Caroline and Rosamund interact in the beginning, in the middle, and the end. But I didn't really do it consciously. I did it because I had to write the beginning and the middle and the end. Yeah, so there we go.
There you go, indeed. You did the exercise in a way that worked for you. This is not school. You're allowed to do that. The most important part of the exercise is not even the exercise itself, but is to conduct your attention. This thing, this aspect, this is important. Give it enough time, give it enough care. The mechanics of the exercise itself are not very important. And you did give it time and attention, so grand. Oh, merciful masters of the internet, the moment has finally come. We can have a look at Jill's writing. Small reminder, nothing here is final. In fact, we must assume that the final version of the novel will look nothing like the first draft. First and foremost, we're looking for character development here, and especially relationship development. So let's start with a snippet from the second page of the draft. Your hot enemy, Caroline repeated, wondering if her heroine had hit her head on the ground. One of your potential love interests, handsome, dangerous, disdainful, but also intense and passionate and daring. Rosamund sniffed, more concerned with practicality than passion. I can't hold my two-handed sword with one of my hands, Caroline. I can't finish the match. She rolled her eyes. And on the subject of swords, a longsword does not weigh as much as a moderately sized cat. I don't know where you're getting your numbers from. Caroline had thought that 4.5 kilograms seemed very heavy, but maybe that was what she got for using information from her first search result. Rosamund hadn't finished. Remember the time you tried sword fighting? Caroline did, vividly. She'd done a little bit of sport fencing at school, but being handed a cavalry saber, it had felt like it weighed 10 pounds, and being told to fight a nervous 17-year-old at a vaguely historical fair the year before had been an experience. She'd had to call time because she physically couldn't hold the sword up anymore, and that was with a fully working arm. Fine, I take your point, do carry on.
Okay, easy to see that we're still setting expectations at this point, as Caroline had to explain to Rosamund that her hot enemy was a love interest. But notice how the scene is full of conflict between the characters. You're supposed to be my fantasy. Do the thing I want you to do. No, I can't do the thing. Remember when you tried to do the thing? You sucked. I am experiencing pain. Well, why don't you try experiencing, let's say, passion instead? See? There's an emotional tug of war there. Now let's have a look at a scene that happens in the middle of the draft when their relationship is evolving from this.
Rosamund, are you alright? I've been so stupid. Rosamund looked up at Caroline, who had knelt down in front of her. Leo and Robin were frozen in place. You tried to warn me, and I didn't listen. I couldn't have told you, Caroline said gently, because you can't know things unless I worked them out myself. Yes, you said, Rosamund sniffed, and when she spoke again, her voice was very small. I don't know what to do. I know the feeling, said Caroline. May I offer you some advice? If you think I'll remember, Caroline sighed. You don't have to do everything on your own. I don't have... Rosamund blinked, then looked over at the two men who had spent 3 days following her from Quayforth. I take your point. If they were to kill me, they'd have done it already. Not quite my point, but it will suffice for now.
Massive shift in energy. Rosamund is opening up and being vulnerable with Caroline. And Caroline is on board with that. She's even resenting her own limitations as a magical spirit writer. And she's going above and beyond, giving Rosamund this really sweet piece of advice. Wait. Jill, is this self-therapy? Anyway, this is not the behavior of that Caroline who just wanted Rosamund to go. Do the thing. Be my fantasy. Instead, this is the behavior of somebody who cares. And in turn, Rosamund is acting like somebody who knows she's cared for. This clear character and relationship development, very good. So where does this go? Let's have a look at an interaction closer to the end of the draft.
Are you writing while getting changed? Rosamund said, amused. Caroline threw up her hands in frustration. I just wanted to get this done before. She was holding a tube in her hand, and Rosamund watched with interest as the writer put on some lipstick. Very bright lipstick, in a very familiar shade. Is that the lip color you had me wearing for the masquerade? Rosamund inquired sweetly, and Caroline looked away, now wearing a knee-length dress. Who are you trying to... Oh, Caroline Lindley. Are you going on a date? Shut up, Caroline retorted, but she was still smiling. Yes, and I actually need to go now. I don't want to be late. No, I hear he's a real stickler. Nobody likes smug Rosamund Hawkhurst Collins. If you say so, but Caroline's enthusiasm was infectious. Be back by 10:30. You have work in the morning. Caroline rolled her eyes. Yes, mother. You look beautiful.
This was already one of my favorite interactions in the short series, but here it's even better. From that initial tug of war between the characters, to Caroline allowing Rosamund to be more than just her private fantasy, caring for her even though Rosamund was making her own decisions. And finally to Rosamund taking care of her own writer, and Caroline being delighted by it. A lovely relationship development, and one that has that thing I always talk about in my videos, especially the ones about Miyazaki, growth towards care, growth towards kindness. Not growth towards power or mastery or professionalism, growth towards care. Rosamund and Caroline are learning to care for each other.
Thanks for writing in this optimistic way. We need more people like you and more narratives like that. By all the gods, half of my channel is just advocating for exactly that. Thank you. Yes! What else you got for me?
The other thing you suggested I might want to do is write something which develops the world building, which I did, which is completely outside of the chronology of the story as it happens, because it takes place several months after and like a decade and a half before the story simultaneously, which is about why the Hawkhurst estate has so much money and why people heal from their injuries more quickly than you might suspect in a quasi-Renaissance kind of setting.
Just a second, Jill. I haven't even read your world building exercise yet, but before I miss this moment, let me point out something that is colossally evident for me, but might not be so for you. This story you're writing has what we call a soft world building. That basically means that the focus is not the mechanics of the world and how it operates and how predictable the elements of the world are, but instead the focus is the vibe of the world, the personality of your narrative and the emotions it tends to evoke. So you can explain things if you want to, but don't feel forced to. Nobody will think less of your story because of, oh, this doesn't make sense. Yeah, sure, people heal in one day. Yeah, sure, people fall 80 meters in their life. That's alright. The really important bit is that the world building conveys this vibe. So let's see what you did.
So that was helpful because it was then easier to write the scenes which happen in the book. They're like, hey, you have been injured, but we're not going to give you stitches, even though that would be traditionally the thing we do. We're going to use this thing, which is more like a modern thing, but it's kind of magic. It's a little bit magic. Sort of. Slightly magic birds, whatever. I'm very tired. I probably should not have spent so much of my supposed holiday writing. Maybe. I mean, it was very productive, but I'm very tired.
Oh no! Here, I made you some tea. Everything is gonna be okay.
Is that tea I just gave Jill magical? Is it poisonous? I don't know. Maybe the world building will help us find out.
Lavender? Rosamund always smelled of it too, now that I had thought of it. The oil she put in her hair was perfumed with lavender. There were bags of lavender in old dressers and closets. He probably smelled of lavender himself at this point, given how ubiquitous its use was in the house. They build lavender into their nests. They're absolutely obsessive about lavender cheese. You know what, Jill? I'm enjoying this. Lavender cheese is an interesting sensorial proposition. The birds carrying cheese around is very on brand with the vibe you're creating. Wholesome. So far, so good. They practiced for another quarter hour before supper, but for the rest of the evening, Leo was still stuck on birds eating cheese. The Caladriers were everywhere on the estate, to the extent that he'd once found one on his actual bed, and they combined their beauty, well, for birds, resembling as they did oversized peafowl in shades of iridescent pearl, with the temperamental moodiness and imaginatively destructive tendencies of 3-year-old children. The difficulties in breeding them were nearly as well known as the birds themselves, and the Hawkhurst estate was one of the very few places in Bavaria that actually had a breeding flock, which made war very profitable for them, given the use of Caladrius tears in preventing and curing infection and in speeding up healing. Okay, I love the birds. They align very well with this mythical, goofy vibe you're going for. They're great. You fleshed out details that might come in handy, maybe in this book, maybe in the next. And you not only expanded on health and wealth, but my favorite part of this whole world building exercise is the very unique and very sweet pregnancy test you created.
And if you want to know all about it, you're gonna have to read that snippet. Hey, a new piece of the One Crisis at a Time narrative outside of the story. This is actually pretty cool. It's available on Jill's website. I'm linking in the doobly-doo below, right?
I'm happy I gave you this exercise. We all got to experience another part of your world. And as you build upon it, piece by piece, I hope those very first bricks are a solid foundation. The whole moody birds and lavender cheese, that's the energy. You're on the right track. This is the emotional state you're building. This is well aligned. Very good. Very good indeed. Yes, yes. So, apart from the exercises, where are we then?
What I have now is like 80% of a story in a very rough form. And that's kind of my next problem, because I sent it to you so that you could read it, but what's the metaphor here? Alright, I'm building a house, and I've built the foundation. When I came to build the walls, I've built like two fairly sturdy looking walls, but they have some holes in them for the windows, but the hole is triangular and the window is square. And then the third wall is only like a line of bricks. This is very difficult to explain. I'm not explaining this very well. I am having a structure problem because I have realized that I have written a beginning of the story for Caroline and Henry the Hot Editor, and there are some bits in the middle, and there's an ending, but none of the arcs make sense yet, because they're just, here are the things that the characters did. I know that there's at least 20,000 words more writing to do.
What you just described, it's not a problem, it's just writing. This is how the process goes. Going back to your kaleidoscopic building metaphor, you haven't even started building those walls yet. You're still on the foundation and it's not even ready. You're good, you're doing good, you're writing a lot. That's all that matters right now. But what should we do next?
I think I need to figure out how the structure goes, except I can't remember how the book goes now, because as soon as I write something down I forget it, because that's the point of writing it down, so I don't have to keep it in my head anymore. So I've got like this thing, and I'm like, okay, I remember vaguely what happens at the beginning, and some of the things that happen in the middle, and some of the things that happen at the end. I know that things are missing, but I don't know where they go, and I don't know quite what they have to be, because I don't know where they go.
Okay, we can work with this. Let me show you what you're gonna do. You're gonna do something like this. Though this is the summarized version that I can only use because I memorized the big one. This is actually how my wall looked for over 2 years. And I'm sorry I'm blurring things, there's secrets and mysteries here. But Jill, this process is never ending. This will consume you, this will consume your life. You gotta create a timeline with all of your events and scenes. And at first, it's as simple as it sounds. First this happens, then this happens, then this happens. Later you're gonna refine that and add some extra nuance. At first the character was feeling like this, but at the end the character needs to feel like that. So probably in the middle there should be a scene where the character feels like this. And you'll soon realize that some stuff happens simultaneously. Oh, Rosamund is running from bandits while Caroline is on the phone with tech support. Deciding how to portray that temporal juxtaposition in your book, where to direct the reader's attention, is one of your most powerful tools as a writer. Important detail about the timeline, you're gonna have to experiment with the granularity of the events you're gonna put there. Adding too much detail is as much trouble as adding too little. You gotta find a balance. You should also be mindful of how much information you're adding to each entry, to each of the post-its. Try to use a big, thick pen so you can look at your letters from a distance, and just add enough information so you get the general gist of what's going on. Conversations with Leo about lavender cheese is probably too much. Something like lavender convo would probably do the trick. As you first watched this video, I already shipped you a pack of really high quality post-its. They're either there or they're getting there. Hear me out. Please listen to me.
Oh, internet overlords, you as well hear my words and fear my curse, for I am about to speak the divine truth.
Do not, I repeat, do not use bad quality post-its. This timeline on your wall is an extension of your brain. Using bad quality post-its It's like trying to do complex mathematical equations while drinking bleach. Use the good ones. I'm sending you, I don't know, hundreds. Do not buy the bad brands.
Hope that was clear.
So, as you guessed, your next exercise is to create this narrative structure, this timeline. The post-its really come in handy because you're gonna want to move them around. Different colors might mean different characters or different locations. Maybe one timeline for Rosamund in green and blue and another one for Caroline in orange and pink makes sense. And perhaps yellow is the color you're gonna use to represent mood or emotion or crises. At this point of the process, don't worry about 3-act structure or tension graphs or hero's journey, nothing of the sort. Just deal with this timeline crisis first, alright? And you gotta really think of this timeline as outsourcing part of your thoughts. The human brain is not ready to hold as many ideas as a full novel. We're not ready for that number. But the human brain, an empty wall and a bunch of good quality post-its, is perfectly capable of doing just that. Oh, I almost forgot something. Let me just talk to the folks.
Oh, mighty masters of the internet, hear my plea. The process I just described to Jill is also the process that starts the purging. It's exactly then, when everything is mapped out, that the gardener writer finally finds out that, oh, this scene here that I really love would fit much better there. But for that to happen, then everything needs to change. So some of hers and some of your favorite moments in the Fantasy Heroine series might be edited to the point that they are unrecognizable. They still carry that same emotional push, emotional journey, but the actions that happen in the scene are so different that it's just a different creature. And I urge you to be supportive of those changes. Sometimes they're really emotionally demanding for the writer, even when they make sense for the story. Of course, we all want a great novel at the end of this journey, but we also want to create a humane process that will not make the artist feel horrible about their own choices. And this is an opportunity just for that. Let's just embrace whichever changes Jill wants to make. I asked you before, and I'm asking you again. Let's be enthusiastic about this novel. Not a direct translation of the short videos, but this novel, whatever it wants to become. Let's cheer for that.
And since you mentioned your unbuilt walls, triangular windows, let's address that as well. Once all of your story is on the wall, and especially once you add all of the Caroline and Rosamund scenes next to one another, my guess is that you're gonna figure out that Caroline's life is rather silent for a huge chunk of the book. That's opportunity. Let's work on that. So your exercise is figuring out what plot line Caroline can have in those moments, one that supports this journey towards kindness that we previously mentioned. We know the challenges that Rosamund is facing, and we know that this is making her more vulnerable and open. What about Caroline? What conversations and confrontations are making her come back to Rosamund with more care in her heart? I would love to read the scene that you write when you add the first new post-it on the wall. You know, after you finish all the mapping of what you already got, you're like, oh yeah, it's time to do something new here. Maybe one that you didn't even realize that you needed before you went through this mapping work and sense-making work. This time around, the two exercises I gave you are very structural to your novel, while before it was more about practicing your writing skill. And that is a timely change, because you also sent me this message.
I don't... I'm very tired. I don't want to write things just for the sake of them. I'm happy to write things because they are entertaining, even if they're not going to be in the book, but I don't want to write, like, just... I don't want to try and write things and just have them be not... I don't know where I was going with that sentence. Why is it morning? Why? I don't know.
I don't know, Jill. I really don't know. But you also sent me this other video a couple of hours later.
So, slightly later in the day, update. I'm not tired. I'm sick. Possibly I'm allergic to holidays, or more likely, my body is getting its revenge for me not actually taking a holiday and instead doing a whole bunch of work. So, regardless, I'm going to not be an idiot and try and take care of myself. So I'll see you soon. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year too. And you know what? I also spent Christmas in your cursed country and I got sick too. Thanks for recording 2 videos for me in a day that you were really sick. And I know you did this so you wouldn't leave me hanging, and I really appreciate it. But hey, it's really okay if next time you take a true break and just rest. I am here to help you write this novel, not to add some recording pressure on your shoulders. Besides, I also needed that break. I'm only recording this because of the power of painkillers. I am a little puddle of ibuprofen. So let's heal for real, and then we'll get back to our groove.
And mighty internet overlords, thank you for accompanying our slightly slimy and feverish journey. I urge you to forgive Jill and myself when we get sick. It's hard to juggle your creative life with your paid work and your health, and the forests are all on fire. I'm here interfacing with you in this ethereal space, a recording of a past performance. But in reality, back there, I'm just a guy. I'm flesh and bone and anxiety. Thank you for your attention today, and a special thank you to my patrons who make me believe if I'm lucky enough, if I persist, and I will persist, then I can do this professionally. I can dedicate my life to writing stories about kindness and care. And I can't think of a better destiny than this, so I will persist. Thank you so much for giving me this hope. And any comment, any like, any interaction really helps this humble channel grow. So I'll see you for episode 3, folks. Bye.
It's like, I know I'm missing a window, but I don't have a space for the window in my wall. Sort of thing. And I don't know how to figure out where the window's supposed to be so that I can write the window and then put the window in. Make the window, whatever. It doesn't... You get the idea.